This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's October 2nd, 2025. On this day in 1910, in the skies over Milan, Italy, two planes collided for the first time ever. Those were, of course, the very earliest days of aviation. The planes weren't too far evolved from the original Wright Flyer. The cockpit hadn't really become a thing yet. There was nothing to help the pilots know where anything else was in the sky, aside from what they could see with their own eyes. But, the idea of having more than one plane in any given place was even newer than the tech. The crash happened during an air show, which was a concept that had only just been invented the year before. Thankfully, despite a complete lack of anything we would recognize today as even minimal safety gear, both pilots survived the accident. However, one of them was injured badly enough that he never flew again. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The air is a much busier place these days, but thankfully mid-air collisions are incredibly rare. It was absolutely shocking when we all heard of the one in January near Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., when an airliner and a military helicopter crashed into each other. There is technology now to help pilots have a better understanding of what's near them. But most of all, there's a vast network of airport towers manned by skilled air traffic controllers, people who track the flight paths of everything in the skies and on the runways, communicating with pilots to make sure no two planes are trying to occupy the same territory. They're like conductors, keeping the orchestra full of airplanes in sync with each other. Except when they aren't. In the last 5 years, there have been at least 10 very close calls at the Nashville airport. Situations where more than one plane was cleared to use the same runway at the same time have led to aborted landings and abrupt stops. Thankfully, they've all been misses, but none of those problems should have happened. This week, the Tennessean reported that the Nashville International Airport's tower is badly understaffed. About 30 air traffic controllers work there. That's almost a dozen shy of what the FAA recommends for an airport like BNA. It's fewer than there were 20 years ago, despite the growth in the number of flights and passengers coming through the airport every day. But this isn't just a Nashville problem. Across the nation, there's a shortage of people willing to work as air traffic controllers. That's despite record hiring last year. Nationwide, about 2,000 have been added to the roles, but federal officials say they still need about 3,000 more to fully staff all of the towers around the U.S., and those new hires won't be ready to fully do the work for a few more years. The problem is, it's an incredibly stressful job. As if it weren't enough to know that countless lives are in their hands every day, air traffic controllers generally work at least 6 days a week, and those days can be long ones. And that's once you get the job. Those long shifts that threaten to break your spirit are the prize at the end of a whole separate gauntlet, getting certified. First, there's the application process, complete with skills tests and background checks. Only about 10% of the people who apply make it through. From there, it takes 2 to 3 years to be certified, but only about a third of the people who start the initial training course finish even that, much less make it through to the full certification. Trainees have to be willing to move wherever in the nation the FAA sends them. You can't even try if you're older than 31, and it's a career that ends early. Mandatory retirement is age 56. If you make it that long. If you can power through 10-hour shifts without bathroom breaks and rarely being able to see your family. A lot of people quit. I'm sure you can think of many reasons why they might. Something has to change. Americans are flying more than ever. There are an estimated 45,000 commercial flights in this country every year. And someone has to be the traffic cops of the airspace in order to make sure the near misses don't become tragic and deadly accidents. Earlier this year, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced plans to make massive upgrades to the tech involved in air traffic control. And he says recruiting for new people to work with that tech is in overdrive. But to date, little has been said about looking for ways to make it a more sustainable career for the people who fill those jobs, or one that a greater number of qualified people might be interested in taking on. In just a few minutes, using a traditional handcraft to teach lessons in STEM. That's coming up after the newscast.
I like to say Nashvillager in the morning, this is Nashville in the afternoon. I'm Blake Farmer, the new host, and yes, WPLN's Midday Show is also a podcast, and we understand lunchtime listening may not be your thing, but that doesn't mean you have to sit out. You can listen wherever you get your podcast, like right here, or ask your smart speaker to play the latest episode of This is Nashville.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. As the federal government shutdown reverberates across the country, it is shaking up some operations in Tennessee. More than 30,000 federal employees live in Tennessee. Starting yesterday, many of them are furloughed. Those deemed essential, think air traffic controllers and federal law enforcement, will be required to work without pay until the shutdown is over. The Tennessean reports that means the National Guard troops deployed to Memphis could be temporarily uncompensated. After past government shutdowns, furloughed workers returned to their jobs, but this time President Trump has threatened mass layoffs. The shutdown could also cause delays for programs like Social Security and Veterans Affairs. Tennessee mothers and children who rely on food assistance programs could also be impacted. The National WIC Association president tells NPR that they could run out of funds if the shutdown lasts more than a week. SNAP is expected to last longer, but could also face a funding cliff depending on how long the shutdown lasts. Questions remain about Tennessee's last execution by lethal injection when a man named Byron Black groaned and said he was in pain. Amid that uncertainty, the state Supreme Court just scheduled 4 more executions. WPLN health reporter Catherine Sweeney tells us more.
The 4 executions are scheduled throughout 2026. Those sentenced to death include Krista Pike, who would be the first woman executed in Tennessee in 2 centuries, and Gary Wayne Sutton, who has a broad base of supporters arguing he's innocent. In some cases, the condemned have been diagnosed with mental health disorders, and their attorneys have argued they never should have been sentenced to death in the first place. Meanwhile, the state has failed to hand over records and other information about the botched execution in August, says attorney Kelly Henry. She represents several death row clients. She said she and her team will continue investigating what went wrong and hopes that other clients aren't, quote, tortured like Byron Black was. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
A new grassroots organization is keeping a watchful eye on what happens in Nashville's courtrooms, inspired in part by an award-winning WPLN investigation. It's not a new idea. Similar groups have operated since the 1970s in places like Massachusetts, New York, and Chicago, but past efforts in Nashville didn't last very long. The current Court Watch was organized by longtime public defender Dawn Diener after listening to the kids of Rutherford County, Miriam Knight's investigation of problems in the Rutherford County juvenile justice system. The Nashville Banner reports some of the observers are people with personal experience in the criminal justice system, and they receive stipends. Others are volunteers. Together, they sit in on public hearings, and the hope is that their presence will offer a degree of accountability for the judges and attorneys who carry out the legal process. Austin Peay State University is revisiting its processes after saying it would fire a professor over a Charlie Kirk post. Now the Clarksville-based university says theater professor Darren Michael is suspended. The Tennessean reports that's a required step before termination. Kirk was the founder of Turning Point USA, a political organization to rally young conservatives. He was killed at a college in Utah on September 10th. Shortly after, Senator Marsha Blackburn shared what appeared to be a post from the professor on social media. The post referenced Kirk's past statements on gun deaths being, quote, worth it to protect Second Amendment rights. Blackburn addressed Austin Peay in her message, and the university announced the same day that Michael was fired. Michael's lawyer says he's trying to get clarity on what happens next. In addition to the suspension, the school now says it's working to terminate Michael's tenure. Requirements for food stamp eligibility have changed in Tennessee, and recipients will have until just the end of this month to submit proof that they qualify. Annabelle Massa with member station WKMS has these details.
New work requirements for the state's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, were announced by the Tennessee Department of Human Services in late September. To qualify, able-bodied adults without dependents must be between 18 and 65 years old, without disability, and cannot live with children under 14. They also must work, volunteer, or participate in a job training program for at least 20 hours a week. Exceptions include being pregnant or medically certified as physically or mentally unfit for employment. More than 700,000 Tennessee residents who rely on SNAP have until the end of the month to prove that they've complied or that they meet an exception to keep receiving aid. More information can be found on the Tennessee Department of Human Services website. I'm Annabelle Massa in Murray.
Nashville has announced a new job training partnership with Amazon to prepare students for tech jobs. WPLN's Rose Gilbert has the story.
In recent years, Nashville has emerged as a tech hub. Now it's the sixth city in the nation to join Amazon's Skills to Jobs Tech Alliance, a job training initiative to grow tech talent in the cities where Amazon operates. Mayor Freddie O'Connell says building that workforce will be vital for Nashville's future.
We believe the city and region can produce the best and brightest tech talent in the country. We believe that talent can accelerate Nashville's strengths in the music industry and healthcare IT and develop new strengths in rapidly developing sectors like fintech. And that is why I am excited about today's news.
This partnership works with universities to ensure students learn the skills needed to work in a quickly changing field and address gaps in areas like artificial intelligence and cloud computing. It also works with employers to ensure that these students land well-paying jobs after graduation. Rose Gilbert, WPLN News.
Nashville's Major League Soccer team has won its first championship trophy. Last night, Nashville Soccer Club defeated Austin FC to win the 110th Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Sam Surridge, who's in the running to be the league's most valuable player of the year, sealed the win with a penalty kick in the 60th minute. NSC is inviting fans to celebrate the win with the club on Sunday with an event at Geodis Park. The Cup is the nation's oldest soccer tournament, predating the MLS, and is run by a separate, older organization called the U.S. Soccer Federation, which also runs the national teams. However, this championship is not the end of the MLS season, which continues into the next month. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. An initiative pieced together by the National Quilt Museum in Paducah, Kentucky, along with professors at Murray State University, is using fiber arts to teach K-12 students about shapes and geometry. Derek Operly with member station WKMS has this feature story.
What is this? Justin Wynn stands at the head of a classroom like usual. He's teaching Paducah Tillman High School students math and geometry. But this math lesson is a little different.
What's the whole picture of? It is a quilt. This is actually a photograph or copy.
The quilt the kids are looking at is a jumble of shapes, large red circles sitting in the empty space between multicolored striped lines that create an hourglass shape out of two diamonds. The quilt is one of many created by New York-based artist Victoria Finlay Wolfe for Option Expedition, an exhibit that just ended its run at the National Quilt Museum this month. When Wolfe started creating the series in the exhibit, she planned to use it to help show quilters how elementary shapes can be used to create powerful displays, developing hundreds of designs by cutting, stretching, and rearranging shapes. But now, students of all ages are using them to learn.
So whether little kids are coming in and learning about identifying circles, squares, and parallelograms in the work, another quilter might be coming in and being able to design texture, movement, color, contrast, all of these other terms.
Wynn, the PTHS teacher, says seeing real-world applications of geometric principles in a museum can help broaden students' understanding of key concepts and help make them stick.
When they see it actually being applied, it does actually help. So we try to do that in the classroom. It's just this gives us a better opportunity to do it.
He's brought multiple classes since NQM started working on the program in the spring. The museum collaborated with math teachers from Murray State University to help design the curriculum. Molly Williams, an associate professor at MSU, worked with senior instructor Cindy Kramer to put together adaptive lesson plans that could be used with any grade school level math class.
We created these lesson plans for each of these sort of groups because we knew that what teachers are really good at is that they're really good at working with their students.
Williams, too, believes that these real-world applications are the key to helping students understand core math concepts and carry them forward in life.
we do want students to see, oh, you're learning about parallelograms and squares and rhombuses in your classroom. They do exist naturally out in the world.
The program also helps them engage with art like Wolf's that they may not have encountered outside of it.
And she's working with a lot of the principles of art: shape, line, color, scale, negative space. Looking at how
the program also helps them engage with art like Wolf's that they may not have encountered outside of it. Becky Glasby, the museum's director of learning and engagement, leads students through the gallery, talking with them about Wolf's pieces. Glasby says while artists aren't often thinking about equations or what she called math class math, a lot of calculations go into making something like a quilt, and students can see that on display in Wolf's work.
we're thinking about how many pieces do I need to cut? How big do those pieces need to be? So how much yardage of fabric do I have to buy? How big is the quilt going to be? How many shapes do I need to create it that big? Like, we're doing the math, what I like to call quilt math.
Though the program wasn't a surprising development to Wolf, she does hope that it can make a difference for some kids that participate.
Hopefully it can plant a seed in young people that quilts have an artistic value, and who knows, maybe they'll turn them into quilters or find their creative side by using math.
Though the program wasn't a surprising development to Wolf, she does hope that it can make a difference for some kids that participate. With the exhibit's Paducah run over, Glasby says the museum plans to continue the initiative. Wolf is creating miniature versions of some of the quilts to be housed at the National Quilt Museum so that a version of the program can be done on-site locally or lent out to Kentucky schools and institutions across the country. I'm Derek Operly in Paducah.
It has been 1 year since the launch of the Appalachian Mid-South Newsroom, which helped produce this quilt story and many others that you've been hearing each week. The effort is a collaboration between NPR and 7 public radio stations in 3 states, including WPLN News. Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.